privacy. But at this juncture, in the movement of unions, they have been very inadequate in this area. Thankfully, in the last 4 or 5 years, as negotiations for contracts have come up again that were originally done in the 1980s, they are starting to talk about this because they realize they're losing some of their very best people to drug testing. And one last point. A lot of people argue, and I had the pleasure of debating the former head of the DEA a few weeks ago up in Maine, who is himself along with the former head of NIDA, Robert DuPont, in the drug testing consulting business. He is quick to tell audiences that drug testing is really, and this was a great point that Barbara was bringing up, it is really the same as an airline security check. And of course, since I agree with Barbara that an airline security check is very close to a name regarding security, I wanted to bring this up with him. He and I, this former head of the DEA, Peter Benzinger, we fly quite often, and so he likes to make the analogy that drug testing is very much like a airline security checkpoint. I have 2 major problems with that. One is, yeah, if you go into a plane and go up into the, high altitude, the idea that somehow you're going into a pressurized cabin, of course nobody would want to have a bomb or incendiary device on there. That's a given, we can all accept that. But the other problem is that when you walk through that metal detector, it is detecting the metal on you, not the metal you might have had on you a month ago or 2 months ago, which is in essence all drug testing does. It does not measure for impairment, it only measures for past use. We have a couple moments. I'd like to just open up a couple of questions before we go to our next panel. If anybody had any questions for Barbara or about Normal's general drug testing policies and what we do, this is the time to do it. What we're going to get right here.
Hi. This is awesome. I turn it over. I am. Mr. Dawson.
Go to that question.
Hey, how about you?
Oh, okay. There might be employees who might be selling drugs or doing drugs on the property, which might lead to a confiscation of the business under the asset forfeiture laws. Some of them might be doing this just to protect themselves.
I'm asking Alan for backup. Could a business be confiscated if employees on it were?
Well, there are some states that have passed laws that make it so that employees and even landlords are somewhat responsible for both their employees' actions and their tenants' actions. And so I think Ms. Wells' question is such that, and actually this comes up a lot when I talk to folks who own a business. What if you own, let's say, a bread delivery service, and you have a person go out and deliver bread that day, and for whatever reason, of no fault of their own, somebody backs into their truck? Well, they're going to have to take a drug test. And what if it actually got to a compensation hearing or some deliberative body like a jury? And in the end, the fulcrum, what the whole thing turned on was whether or not the truck driver had gone through a drug test or not. That might turn a little bit on liability, and much could be the same could be said for forfeiture. I don't know that an employer would lose their business for it, but the pressure, the inherent pressure to do so is such that it makes it so that people the employers have drug testing where they would not otherwise.
I heard you about a week ago on WBAI talking about rights. I was wondering if that might have anything to do with this drug testing, because you were so articulate and interesting on that about women and how there's discrimination against women. I wonder if that might have any bearing, any remote connection between that and this.
Well, insofar as women are also employees, and women and minorities are overrepresented in the low-wage part of the workforce. Not that drug testing doesn't go throughout it. I don't know if there's any. I wonder if anybody else here has thought about that. Whether there's any special angle for women in drug testing. The cases I have heard about, I mean, a lot of the complaints of the humiliation of drug testing have come from women who find the protocol of, say, having to undress and pee in front of somebody, just really, humiliating, which I think is what it's meant to be. But other than that, I don't know. Does anybody else have
Reminds me of strip searches, how women are humiliated by strip searches.
Well, I would add that I've talked to